The story of our manga begins after the Great War in 2155. After the war, an armistice agreement was signed. The Chinese company presented a new game that was supposed to be released in September. It will be a game about a meta-universe called the Celestial Empire. After this, the world was again divided into 4 main regions, namely Chinese, Sumerian, Nile River, and Aryan. And the currency system in the game will be connected with all banks from real life, so it will be possible to exchange it for real money, a real dream of any Genshin player. An obviously serious lady flew in on her private jet to find out about the result of the consultation with specialists, but the report of the dude in glasses was clearly not happy. He says that it is necessary to stimulate the state of the brain, otherwise absolutely all of a person's memories will be erased forever. This girl's name is Manhwa Recap, and she says that they can use any methods and the most top-notch equipment, but the guy named Zhao must survive. The guy with glasses smiles strangely and says that after long discussions, they managed to find a way that could help in this situation. The lady immediately became wary and began asking the guy about this method, but the only thing this guy said was the word Celestial Empire. Arriving at the game base, they began to be told that while the players are in the game, their brain cells are strongly stimulated to create an additional reality. Their theory is that if brother Manhwa Recap can enter the game, his brain will begin to heal itself, and there are chances that he will wake up. The lady presses the red start button with the hope that her brother will definitely wake up after completing the game. The capsule in which the guy sat like a guinea pig begins to fill with bubbles, which means that the immersion in the game has begun. The guy begins to jerk in different directions as if he had a heart attack. Apparently, Light Yagami again tried to kill another criminal. Suddenly, the guy's eyes open, and he wakes up as if after a long night in which he drank many different drinks and now he doesn't feel very good. The boy has come to his senses and feels incredibly happy because he just literally woke up from a long coma. He turns into some kind of comet and flies as if he were some kind of legendary character from the game Genshin Impact. Someone was lucky today. But our boy is clearly not lucky because he wakes up in a completely different world with a completely different appearance. He clearly has a headache after such a landing, and for some reason he ends up with a hoe from Minecraft in his hands. Has he really become Steve? He approaches the nearest river to examine his face, and is extremely surprised that he has become much smaller than before. The dude grabs his head and starts screaming in horror and not understanding what the hell is happening to him. Where did he even end up? It turns out that the body into which our dude moved is also called Zhao. Every day he suffered humiliation from his village and was terribly hungry. Our main character still realizes that he has moved to another world, and still he will have to come to terms with his fate as a poor boy. He begins to think about the death of the previous owner of this body, but a terrible feeling of hunger simply does not allow him to concentrate and think correctly. In order to survive, he will have to work hard, and therefore our young Minecraft player goes to the mine to earn his living. It seems that Zhao is very determined, and with the very first blow of his pickaxe, he destroys the stone into small pieces. He knows that for turquoise stones, he can get 2 portions of food, so our hero only counts on luck in his belts. The boy makes a few more strong blows and more stones begin to fly in different directions. He is very strong for a small, hungry boy. Suddenly, his attention is attracted by some strange glow from the hole he just made. He needs to quickly look at his find. Our main character cannot understand until the very end what kind of strange iron thing is sticking out of the stone, but he still wants to take it away. With all his strength, he begins to pull this thing as if it were the hammer of Thor himself, which only the most worthy can lift. But suddenly a huge force begins to break out from the bowels of the earth, and a sword emitting magical energy appears before our boy's eyes. He looks at this sword and thinks that it is too worn out, and even at the market you won't be able to get a lot of money for it. It seems that he missed the moment when the sword was consecrated. What a fool. Suddenly some strange voice called our Zhao by name, which greatly surprised our hero because he thought that he was here completely alone. Dwayne the Rock. Johnson appears before our eyes and says that he has already searched for his trusty sword, just as Zhao found it. But our main character is not going to give up his find so easily to the first person he meets, and says that under no circumstances will he return this sword, a real Sigma. But the guy with red eyes only laughs that our Zhao decided to resist. Such a pathetic puppy will not last even a couple of seconds in a battle with a real warrior. He grabs the guy by the shirt and asks this loser if he really thinks he's so tough that he can defeat him. Raising Zhao above the ground, this guy says that Zhao's chi is very weak and smells like unicorns. With such strength, he will never become a real warrior. Rock Johnson says that our main character is not even capable of cultivating. Then why the hell did he give up this damn sword? It's better to let him give it to an experienced guy. He will definitely find a worthy use for it in the field of magic. But suddenly Zhao gathers all his strength into a fist and uses his secret technique called poking his fingers into his opponent's eyes and quickly leaving. After the dude is distracted by the pain in his Sharingan, Zhao uses another technique and stabs his opponent straight in the throat. The guy is not going to stop and continues his super combo. He hits the billiard ball straight and they all hit the target. Still, our hero is far from so weak, and this combo works in all dimensions, and therefore Zhao collects his things and quickly runs out of the cave. And the guy with terrible pain all over his body is left to suffer in this cave. He will know how to try to take things away from the main character of this story. Still, this idiot finds strength in himself and begins to run after Zhao to take revenge on him for the damage caused to his self-esteem. Our boy had not yet had time to familiarize himself with the area, and therefore found himself in a dead end. Jumping straight into a cliff was not the best idea. Suddenly, this idiot uses some kind of magical ability, and Zhao rushes into the abyss like a model with garbage in a trash bin. This fool, of course, is sorry to say goodbye to such a good sword, but avenging his honor was more important to him, so he leaves Zhao to his fate. Zhao begins to scream in fear, although I would also scream if I were flying into a huge abyss without insurance. Some strange magical effects appear around him, and the main character gradually approaches the ground. In the next frame, we see Zhao sleeping peacefully under a tree with a sword in his arms, and some lady says that he looks very cute. After falling from a cliff, the boy finds himself in some incredibly beautiful place where many birds fly. The lady decided that the boy had had enough sleep and tried to wake him up in a very strange way, namely cutting off his oxygen with a kick. Must have never washed her feet in her life because the boy instantly wakes up after this. Waking up after everything that happened, our Zhao was simply shocked by what he saw before his eyes. An incredibly beautiful lady looked at him in her beauty, comparable to Aphrodite or any other beautiful goddess. The lady turns out to be magical and knows how to fly. She is extremely glad that the boy has finally woken up because she is tired of waking him up. Like any young man, when he sees a beautiful girl, he gets scared and panics. All he can do is hold on to his sword and tremble. The boy still gathers up all his courage a little and asks the lady who she is and what the hell is going on here. But the lady simply tilts her head closer to the guy and asks him to call her the sword girl, which sounds quite strange to our Zhao. The boy tries to concentrate at least a little on his problem, but the view of these beautiful mountains was simply incredible, and he could not do it. The lady says that he can call her the girl of the sword, which haunts our main character even more, and he falls into a stupor. He pokes his finger in her face and starts asking her about why the hell this semblance of a goddess saved such a loser like him. The girl strokes our Zhao's cheek and laughs at him a little. Does this loser really think that he can fly off a cliff on his own and not die? For her help, the lady expects to receive an appropriate reward, and she again makes our hero turn red as a tomato. He's incredibly angry that this damn lady just sits there and mocks him like he's some kind of little child. The guy just gets up and starts yelling at the girl, but she's not happy with this situation. What can he even give her for saving her if he doesn't even have food? The dude starts laughing like an evil genius and invites the girl to sign up for his personal tattoo parlor. She will definitely get the same tattoo as his. But the girl only covers her mouth with her hand so as not to laugh at the boy even harder. She thinks that this is the mark of the Keelan. Suddenly, the lady holds out her hand in front of her and begins to create some strange spell. Our hero is once again frightened by this new world and its strange creatures. Some kind of strange aura appears around the guy and gradually begins to cover his body like Venom from the film of the same name. From the effect of this spell, the boy appears in some sphere and begins to gradually rise above the ground. But this flight did not last long, and Zhao again finds himself on the ground along with his faithful sword. Suddenly, the boy falls into complete shock from the fact that energy called Ki has appeared in the area of his abdomen. But how did the girl do this? But the aura still continued to envelop our boy's sword, and he did not understand at all what the hell was happening in this new world. But the lady says that the red seal has been restraining his powers all this time, and now that it is gone, he can return to the path of cultivation and continue to conjure. As payment for such great help, the lady tells him to always carry with him the sword that he found in the cave and never part with it. The guy is terribly angry that the girl is still laughing at her, and she is only amused by the fact that he is acting like a little child. Suddenly, the boy's legs begin to give way, and he gradually loses his balance, as if he woke up after a night of drinking a lot of drinks. But the lady asks him to calm down. This is just normal exhaustion after sealing his mana for a long time. After a good sleep, everything will definitely pass. The girl tells him to constantly carry the sword with him, so she can collect the spiritual energy of earth and heaven and become stronger. And suddenly, for some reason, this lady turns into a huge Chinese dragon and asks once and for all to remember this meeting and remember the promise. He doesn't even hear what the lady is saying because he's simply shocked by the appearance of a huge white dragon in broad daylight. From the power of this dragon, a large cloud of smoke appears, but the boy wants to know the name of this girl before she leaves. Her name is Bai. The boy is surprised at what happened to him and thinks that he has found one of the 10 strongest artifacts of this world, which contains a fragment of the dragon's soul. Several hours have passed since the lady flew away, and the action is transferred to the thicket of the forest in which our hero will now survive. He is incredibly hungry and cannot stand on his feet properly, so he found himself a stick like a wizard from an MMO game and is now looking for a way out of this damned place. Suddenly he heard some strange sounds in the grass and 2 red Sharingans turned to look at him, clearly in a very hostile mood. The boy became wary and made a serious face like a real Giga Chad. He is going to show this creature who is the real boss of this rocking chair. Suddenly a huge boar jumps out at him and is about to mince our main character. The boy breaks the stick in his hands and begins to get angry, because problems, as always, overtake him at the most inopportune moment. In one swift motion, he kicks the ground to avoid the boar's attack at incredibly high speed. Of course, this boar is a real loser, and cannot even lay a finger on our hero, so he decides to use his new mana power and cook himself some food. But it seems the boy still doesn't know how to use his strength and hits too hard, so much so that the boar flies off several meters. The boy feels incredibly happy because now he has recovered, and no one will call him a loser in this world anymore. Zhao is incredibly grateful to his teacher, who taught him many techniques even though he could not use his chi back then. The dude tears off a small piece of meat from the boar because he could no longer tolerate this feeling of hunger, and he carries the rest of the boar on his back to eat later. Although our hero is glad that he can finally eat, the meat of these creatures is incredibly tough and difficult to chew. Apparently the main character also has some eyes from the Naruto anime, because he easily notices a stone flying at him at high speed. It turns out that this is the same idiot from the cave who is extremely surprised that our boy survived after falling from the cliff. A tenacious creature. But the kid clearly doesn't like it when his lunch is interrupted. Rock Johnson would be better off apologizing for what he did and just leaving with peace of mind. But it seems this idiot doesn't understand that Zhao is the main character of this story, and he can't defeat him. This dumbass just jumps on him screaming about the place. But our hero is also far from being so simple. Although his hands are busy now, he can still fight and therefore uses the best weapons in his inventory. Zhao simply grabs the boar's carcass and hits the dude with all his strength, so he goes on a long journey. This guy has all the snot flying out of his nose, and our hero starts yelling at him because he will never be able to defeat him, much less take this sword away from him. The man, already covered in wounds, begins to curse our hero for his existence, but Zhao simply approaches him and begins to press on him with his foot. Our hero begins to smile as if he has already become the strongest in this world. He asks to name this man at least one reason why he should save his life. The dude lies in complete shock and cannot understand why the hell this brat managed to restore his cultivator skills. But our boy seems to have completely lost his mind from his mega coolness and asks once again to give him a reason not to end this boy's insignificant life. The guy steps his heel on his face and wipes his feet on him, as if he were a rug in the hallway. The guy threatens him because his family will definitely avenge him. But Zhao just laughs at this stupid dude and, gnawing off a piece of meat, says that none of his pathetic family will be able to defeat him. It seems he believed too much in his own abilities. After this, our main character just kicks this poor dude like he's an empty soda can. To be honest, I already feel sorry for this guy. Continuing his incredible series of blows, he says that neither his father nor his master will ever be able to stop such a powerful dude as our main character. Zhao does not show any emotions at all and simply continues to eat meat while looking at the beaten man. Let him call his father and master for help. The poor dude no longer knows what to do, and tells the main character that he cannot kill him since the laws of the city prohibit him from doing so. Our chief feigns surprise and says that he really remembers such a law, but he wants to do it so badly. Upset, Zhao says that he really cannot kill him. This is very sad. The man thinks that he has already gotten out of this situation, but our hero offers another solution. Suddenly, he proposes a strange idea for them to tell a heroic story, but the man simply does not understand what kind of nonsense this crazy man is talking about. Zhao came up with a legend about how he wanted to save this man from a huge boar, but unfortunately he didn't have time. In short, the main character decided to deceive everyone and emerge as the hero of the village. He continues to mock him and says that his father and master will definitely thank him for his attempt to save him, and these words lead the man into complete shock. He says that this brat simply won't dare to do something like that, but it seems that our main character completely lacks all moral standards and is already reaching for his sword. The blade is already flying towards its opponent and is going to finish off this bastard once and for all. In fact, he deserved his fate. From the feeling of approaching death, his eyes filled with fear and he began to tremble like a cowardly kitten. And finally, there was a loud bang that spread throughout the entire area. From such a sound, even the birds realized that it was time to get out of here. But of course, our main character was not going to kill this idiot. He just wanted to take revenge on him for all the bullying he caused him in such a short time. But still, the guy continues to laugh at him, because he shouted so much that his family would definitely come to his aid. But in fact, no one would save him. As moral compensation, Zhao decides to rob this guy, but there's only one little thing in his bag. Apparently his family is not that great. Even though there were only a couple of copper coins in his wallet, it was still better than nothing, as they say, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. He leaves this man here until he wakes up after all. Zhao is not a villain or a murderer, and therefore he saves his miserable life. Suddenly the action shifts to some dudes who were returning home late at night. They were almost there. It turns out that this is the personal cavalry of the queen herself. A cool dude on a horse asks if she is tired, but the lady replies that everything is absolutely normal. But suddenly the romantic atmosphere is interrupted because the dude heard some strange sounds, as if something was moving quickly through the grass. Of course, this dumbass can't think of anything better than to just yell at this dude to come out of his hiding place and fight him in a fair fight. Suddenly our main character appears from the bushes and greets the general as if he were some kind of old friend. But the guy on the horse doesn't seem happy to see him. The general is extremely surprised that the boy was here at such a late hour, but Zhao notices that the general has incredible hearing because he found him instantly. This guy says that Zhao has grown incredibly during this time, and every day reminds him more and more of his father. The general begins to praise the boy for finding a way to use the power of Qi again, and our main character is very embarrassed by such praise. The dude decides it would be a great idea to introduce our boy to this lady, but he warns him to be respectful with her. She is a queen after all. And at that moment something switched in Zhao's head, and he began to realize some details about this lady. She was the only woman who survived the terrible massacre. Now she is the last representative of the royal family. But it seems the lady doesn't need all these formalities at all, and she asks to call her simply Chen Yu, as if she were some kind of girlfriend to him. The boy is still a little uncomfortable being in the presence of the queen herself, but she asks him not to worry. From now on, they are all refugees and are on equal terms. The lady becomes interested in what he will do with the carcass of this boar, but the boy says that he will just sell it because he won't be able to eat it all. Otherwise, there will be money. The dude just sighs hopelessly and says that the guy shouldn't dare sell this boar, but rather let him keep it for himself for later. He hands him a bag of money and tells him to buy various products. The boy needs to eat well if he is back on the path of cultivation. Suddenly, this general remembers that our main character is already 14 years old, and he solemnly hands him the badge of the kingdom's army. At first, the boy doesn't understand why the hell he gave it to him, but the man explains that boys in this kingdom join the army after they turn 14. He jumps on his faithful horse and begins to tell him the story of how at his age, he and his father had already survived several serious battles. Finally, he tells Zhao to never give up because he and the queen will definitely wait for his success in military affairs. Our boy is charged with the motivation of Virgil himself and swears by the memory of his father that he will definitely become the strongest cultivator. The horse has already begun its movement, and the general praises the incredible aspirations of this young boy. He says that he will definitely wait for the moment when they can fight shoulder to shoulder as comrades, and until that moment they say goodbye. Zhao looks after them with a smile and happily says that they won't have to wait long. Apparently he already has a plan to quickly upgrade his account to Genshin Impact. The next chapter begins with the fact that our main character finally came to the gates of some temple, while all the time he carried the carcass of a huge beast on his shoulders. By entering the temple, he can finally throw off this damned burden, and in some way can rest a little. He has only been in this world for one day and is already incredibly exhausted. The boy is incredibly happy that he managed to get to his home, after which he begins to open the gate to the estate. But suddenly some strange face appears behind our hero and begins to call him by name. This incredibly scares him, but he does not get lost in this situation. Zhao makes a serious face of a real Sigma and grabs the dude by the hand to find out what the hell is behind him. Of course, Zhao is not going to stand on ceremony with random dudes, and therefore by accepting a UFC fighter, he sends the dude on a long flight. From such a heavy blow, the guy simply loses consciousness, but with the last of his strength he begs not to kill him, because this is an old friend of our main character. Zhao makes a face as if from some kind of meme, and finally remembers his old comrade named Zhang Liu Chen. Our dude is trying with all his might to beg forgiveness from this guy, but it seems he is not going to forgive such a strong blow to his cheek. It will leave a bruise. This fat man turns out to be extremely kind, because all this time he was incredibly worried about our hero, that he would simply die of hunger in those mines. Zhao simply laughs at this situation, but the fat man doesn't see anything funny in this and begins to look at our hero like the real boss of this rocking chair. But even despite all his anger, the dude specially prepared these delicious dumplings with meat especially for our hero. Suddenly, Zhao's face becomes like that of a little anime girl who has finally been bought to eat for her cute face. Zhao stretches his mouth like Luffy from the anime One Piece, and with tears in his eyes runs to the fat man to taste the delicious dumplings as soon as possible. But this fat dude is a real man and just hates all sorts of cute anime jokes, so he throws a basket of food right in the hero's face to make him shut up. The fat man is attracted by a huge boar lying dead on the porch and thinks that Zhao used a trap to kill it, but he boasts that he killed it with his bare hands. The fat man is literally speechless from such a statement, but for some reason Zhao thinks that he has a piece of dumpling stuck in his teeth. Suddenly, this dude speeds up and hugs our hero so tightly that all the dumplings eaten come back as cash back. They sit down on the stairs at the entrance to the temple, and the fat man begins to laugh loudly and praise his comrade because he dealt with all the affairs very quickly. Suddenly, Zhao turns to the fat man with a very strange expression on his face and a mouth completely full of dumplings. The fat man simply doesn't understand why our hero is looking at him like that. Is it really possible that now there will be another girl's snot that the fat man simply cannot stand? But our main character just stares at him silently, and then the fat dude decides to use his secret light blade technique from Star Wars. But Zhao, like a monkey, dodges such a slow attack and begins to laugh at this fat man because he is slow and clumsy. But suddenly the fun comes to an end, because our main character's gaze was attracted by some strange object in the far corner of the room. This strange object turns out to be a fishing rod that was neatly lying idle and no one used it. But the fat man says that this is a personal gift from Guodong Yang. The archer troops were called to defense, and he asked the fat man to give this fishing rod to the main character. But Zhao wonders if this dude said anything else after he left the fishing rod. Unfortunately, the fat man's answer was negative. But suddenly this dude puts his fingers in our hero's nose, as if his head is a bowling ball, and tells Zhao not to die from his head while he's away. Our main character clearly doesn't like the fact that his head has just been used like a sports equipment, and he starts chasing the fat man with a fishing rod. Suddenly, the fat man stops playing and says that it's difficult for him to go home, or that his dad will never let him out of the house again. No matter how Zhao tried to stop him to eat fried boar together, this fat man could no longer be stopped, and he simply left this place. But it seems that Zhao even likes this situation. Now he has a new fishing rod and a huge amount of fried pork, which is what a real man needs to be happy. The action moves to the next day, and it seems that our main character has decided to try on the image of Cinderella and do household chores. He sat on the floor so diligently and cleaned the meat. It seems that he is a real chef who can already open his own restaurant with various snacks. And finally, there was a huge amount of fried meat on the table. Zhao only had to turn on his favorite TV series, but unfortunately there is no internet in this world. The boy was incredibly tired after such a long work. This boar turned out to be incredibly huge. He sold half of the meat and kept the other half for himself to make kebabs. But it seems that even at such a moment, our hero will not be allowed to rest peacefully, and many explosions are happening behind his back. Once again, his incredibly cool dude mode kicks in, and he pompously turns around to see what's happening on the street. Suddenly, two strangers appear in front of Zhao and confuse him with the same fat man who left yesterday. These freaks start laughing at our main character because they believe that he is not able to cope with even the easiest job, but he is still a dark horse. These two freaks say that Zhao should kneel down and give them this sword, then they will think about sparing him, but our hero will only be amused by these threats. Suddenly they break loose like dogs from a chain and say that Zhao is a real brat because he has absolutely no respect when his elders speak to him. The dude becomes active and begins to fly towards the boy, shouting that he will definitely wipe that smug grin off his face. But apparently Zhao is completely confident that these two pose absolutely no threat to him. With one swift movement, he instantly finds himself in front of his opponent and delivers a powerful blow to Saitama's face. The second guy stands in complete shock because his only hope was just destroyed in an instant, and now there is not a single chance of victory. Zhao's blow turns out to be so strong that the dude simply breaks through the adjacent wall with his face. Has he really become so strong in such a short time? The boy gradually begins to lose control of himself because these two freaks have just encroached on the most sacred thing there is, namely, meat. With a couple of good kicks, he simply throws these losers out and threatens them, because if they come back again, I will let them go to shawarma. These morons just land near the local guards, and the little girl begins to complain because they were the ones who bullied Zhao. The dude begins to ask these two idiots why the hell they are creating chaos in the city, especially at such a time. He moves a little closer to one of them and starts interrogating him, because this dude should be on a military exercise right now, so what the hell is he doing in the city? This mustachioed dude who looks like a Frenchman literally cannot put two words together, especially when such a powerful knight looks at him with threats. But suddenly everyone felt some strange aura that was slowly approaching them. This aura was clearly aggressive. But this evil aura turns out to be our main character who, like Granny, is hunting for these two boobies. But suddenly the boy hears some strange but pleasant voice, and it is he who removes all the anger from him and leaves only complete bewilderment. This voice turns out to be the same little girl who walked with the knights. She was incredibly happy to finally see our main character again. She begins to run around him at great speed like Flash and examines him. The girl was very worried that the boy was injured during his journey. The main character bows his head to the honorary knight and solemnly congratulates him because he has just returned from the front line. This knight asks Zhao why he is chasing these losers, but the boy only begins to glance displeasedly in their direction, as if preparing a plan for revenge. In short, the boy gave absolutely all his testimony against these two freaks and told how they broke into his home and stole his personal belongings. Their faces were clearly scared. The knight looks at these losers as if they were bags of garbage. They are members of his personal battalion, and such behavior is simply unacceptable for knights. This dude just starts yelling at these losers. They not only embarrass themselves, but also ruin the reputation of their boss. This is simply unforgivable. Our main character stood simply in shock because he had never seen this knight in such anger, and these two scoundrels huddled close to each other and shook with fear like little kittens. The situation became more and more terrible with every second. The knight began to threaten them not only with expulsion from the squad, but also with reprisals for the crimes they had committed. Realizing that the situation is absolutely hopeless, these two simply fall to their knees and begin to beg for forgiveness in front of this knight. The knight was extremely surprised by this behavior and did not know what to do, but Zhao asked what punishment was due to them for breaking into someone else's house and complete destruction. Several knights bow as a sign of respect and say that such an atrocity is punishable by complete exclusion from cultivation and the death penalty without the right to pardon. The guy puts forward the final verdict. These guys will be forever banned from military service and will never be accepted as knights of the state again. The dude is simply sitting in complete shock because so far this knight has not said a single word about the death penalty. Have they really decided to spare them? All sweaty and nervous like a schoolboy going on his first date with a girl, the dude just can't control his emotions. But since they didn't cause any serious harm, they are forgiven. But this knight thinks completely differently. Even if they have not caused serious harm to other citizens, it will not be enough to simply deprive them of their cultivation abilities. He believes that if these losers had more strength, they could easily cause much more damage, and the knight extends his hand with a spell towards these two. This dude creates some strange spell that looks like fire, and says that these two will be punished for terrible crimes against the state. These two were already ready to meet their death, but the knight says that if these guys are from a noble family, then they will simply be demoted by one rank of cultivators. The action moves to the water where our guys were amazed at their father. He just returned to the city and immediately returned back to the military camp. The girl is clearly offended by her father because he constantly leaves for milk for a very long time and does not return. But Zhao tries to calm her down, because her father is a very busy man. The boy pats the girl on the head and asks her not to be angry with her father. Since he is not around now, he will definitely play with her, and these words really motivate the girl. The little girl grabs the guy's arm, and obviously for a reason, as if she's going to ask him for a brand new iPhone or something like that. But her requests turn out to be a little less serious, and she asks Zhao to catch some lobsters from the river to play with, but he doesn't seem to like the idea. But in any case, the little lady's wishes must be fulfilled, and now she is already organizing a real duel of crabs to the death. Apparently she has a lot of fun fighting with lobsters. It's so exciting that she doesn't even notice how our main character is suffering. And now he clearly has a hard time because, like a real servant, he continues to catch these damned lobsters in cold water. But all his suffering comes to an end when he realizes that in this pond there are a huge number of lobsters from which many different dishes can be prepared. The lady begins to shout at our hero so that he quickly gets out of the icy water and plays with her as soon as possible. Of course, he simply cannot resist the orders of such a cute little girl and happily agrees to the offer to play. Zhao turns out to be a real hunter and approaches the girl to show off the huge number of lobsters he caught. The girl, of course, was in complete shock that the boy got it all so quickly, but she just couldn't understand why the hell he needed so much if she only asked for a couple of pieces. But Zhao decides to keep the intrigue until the last and tries to surprise this girl. Now he will show her one interesting trick. Meanwhile, the action moves to a fat man who was walking around the city and talking some nonsense about philosophy. It was clear from his face that he was incredibly tired. Suddenly, his sensitive nose and incredible desire to devour catch the incredibly tasty smell of some street food, after which his route in the navigator changes dramatically. The dude begins to literally float with pleasure, and he again says philosophical nonsense, because Confucius himself said how damn delicious this food smells. He enters the house and sees a huge amount of cooked lobsters lying on the table. He wants to quickly find Zhao so that he can share with him. The girl begins to have a slight panic attack because she has never tried lobster before, but Zhao tells her that if she doesn't try it, she will never know the new taste. The little girl begins to refuse such an offer because she will never be able to eat her own friends, but this fat man seems to be able to eat anything. He is looking forward to incredibly tasty food, and our main character is very happy that there was another daredevil who will taste his miracle. The fat man incredibly liked the way Zhao prepared it all, and even the girl, seeing with what appetite this fat man eats, decides to try it. The guys spend the evening in pleasant company eating delicious food, and everyone begins to praise our hero's culinary abilities. The girl liked her friend's cooking so much that she called Zhao a damn culinary genius. The action moves to that same dude who was sentenced to demotion today. For some reason, he's lying wounded and cherry juice is coming out of his hand. The old man says that the dude's right hand is very badly damaged, and now all his achievements in martial arts will be much lower than everyone else's. But the dude just continues to writhe in pain and curse the one who did this to him. It's too cruel because now he won't be able to use his hand. Suddenly, this old man begins to get angry and curse our hero. He swears before all the gods that he will personally finish off this damn Zhao. The wounded dude asks to avenge him, but this is simply impossible because if he kills Zhao, he will definitely be sentenced to death. But the guy bows his head before this gentleman and begins to beg for his help. He is even ready to pay several thousand coins for such a service. Suddenly, the gentleman's sharply gloomy appearance disappears, and he says that since he is offering such a sum, he will gladly agree to such an adventure. Meanwhile, Zhao and his friend ate a lot of lobsters, and the fat man couldn't even move, but still offered to repeat this feast tomorrow. The girl actually ate so much that she fell asleep right on the table. The fat man's offer to repeat this feast was rejected because the spices were too expensive. But the fat guy is already fired up with ideas to make many more of these lobsters and offers to buy everything himself. Zhao will just have to cook it all. But Zhao says that it's not just about the spices, because these lobsters also need to be cleaned with a special brush, and this is too tedious. Zhao is a real lazy person. The girl wanted to start cleaning up, and looking into the basket in which these lobsters were lying, she discovered that there was one more piece left. Suddenly, she proudly raises the lobster above her head and declares that the last piece of delicious food goes to the princess. This horrifies our fat man. The lady is already determined to taste the last piece alone, but it seems the fat man thinks completely differently. He uses a secret technique from Naruto called stealing delicious food from a little girl and takes the lobster for himself. The girl literally lights up with anger towards this damn thief, and she will obviously take revenge, and the fat man happily runs away from the crime scene. They start playing catch all over the house, and the girl is clearly not going to just give up this lobster. Zhao all this time thinks that these two are acting like children. Suddenly, the actions are transferred to some kind of library, in which the young gentleman helps his subordinate find the book he needs, like a Google Navigator. This gentleman watches a bunch of little kids fight for a piece of delicious food, and a third one tries to catch up and calm them down. Suddenly, Zhao pays attention to a boy who is buying some kind of scroll in this shop. I wonder how he managed to attract the attention of our main character. The guy bargained with this dude so that he would sell him a scroll cheaper, and our main character stops abruptly as if he were a Tesla driving at great speed. The boy leaves the shop happy because he just managed to deceive the seller for 3 whole copper coins. It seems life is good. Meanwhile, Zhao stopped next to this gentleman, and they greeted each other like old friends. But it seems they can't have a particularly long conversation, and Zhao simply runs away from him, because he urgently needs to save 2 idiots from killing each other. Suddenly, one of this gentleman's assistants says that the boy has changed a lot in a short time. Maybe someone has possessed him, and this is starting to stress the gentleman. But the assistant is embarrassed by such a strange calmness, because the boy literally grew up before his eyes. But the gentleman is glad that the boy is still alive. This is already good. It turns out that the gentleman immediately realized that this boy had been possessed by a completely different soul, and he was amazed that the doctor was seriously talking about the murder of an innocent child. Suddenly, the dude's Manjeko activates Sharingan, and with his sensitive gaze, he notices some strange thing in the distance. The dude felt like a real shinobi Konoha and simply jumps into the air, parting by asking him to look after the library during his absence. His assistant simply looks after him and says that from the outside, it seems that he has absolutely nothing to do with this showdown. Zhao still catches up with the little girl and, because of everyone, tries to restrain her indomitable anger. But she really wants to take revenge for the stolen food. The fat man begs his friend to save him from the wrath of this girl. He definitely doesn't want to start a battle with her, because he's sure that he'll lose even to a child. All the same, this trio finally calms down, and Zhao promises that tomorrow he will definitely catch a couple more lobsters and again prepare a delicious snack. All this time, the same old man was watching them, and with a grin on his face was already preparing his super sinister plan. He looks at Zhao with incredible anger with his Byakugan, and promises that he will definitely take revenge on him for all the losses caused to his family. Suddenly, this old man creates a huge amount of dark energy in his hand, and night falls on the city. He is going to deal with our hero in one blow. The girl simply doesn't understand what the hell is happening now, and why the sun went out so suddenly, and Zhao is trying to protect her from this old man's attack. Some strange fan, similar to Katana's fan from the Mortal Kombat series of games, stands in the way of this madman. The old man is very surprised that some strange garbage got in his way, but he's not even going to stop his attack. But it turns out that this is the same library owner who came to the aid of our young adventurer and sends this old man on a long flight. His head is starting to hurt very badly. There could have been an insert of advertising for headache remedies, but unfortunately we weren't paid, so we continue. But still, sharp pain is not a reason to stop the battle, and he seems to begin to understand what kind of opponent has come to fight him. The old man was very surprised that the library caretaker came to the battlefield, but it was clearly visible that the old man was afraid of him like a little kitten. But the caretaker seems to be a very cool and strong man, a real gigachad and the son of his mother's friend. He believes that this is a suitable place for a short conversation and murder. Grandfather is extremely indignant because he thought that this dude was a simple owner of a bookstore. Then what the hell is he doing on the battlefield? The dude confirms that he actually owns a bookstore where he can safely learn new techniques, and reminds this old guy that murder is prohibited in this city. But this old man makes the meme face of Jotaro from the anime JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and asks this young gentleman not to poke his nose into other people's affairs. This dude rises in the sky and looks like Gruffud from the anime Berserk. He just asks the old man with a smile what he will do if he interferes in his affairs. But the old man has already begun to cast a new spell and threatens our handsome guy with death, but apparently he will only be amused by his useless threats. He is greatly annoyed by the incredible stubbornness of this old man, and now his patience has run out. He will definitely teach this old man a lesson and teach him the correct manners. He closes his fan and begins to create some kind of spell. These actions incredibly frighten the old man, and real horror appears in his eyes. Suddenly, that damn wizard from Hogwarts opens his fan and makes a powerful swing, thereby creating an incredible flow of energy straight at the old man. The magical power of this library caretaker is simply impressive because the blast wave from this attack simply breaks the bones of this pitiful old man, and now he does not seem so confident. The old man simply flies off to the neighboring town, and in parting the caretaker says that he will spare him, but the old man should never come into his sight again. The kids were just not far from the scene of events and saw this dude fly out of the city like a catapult. The girl thought that it was a celestial being, but Zhao quickly convinced her. Suddenly, some dude approaches our main character and calls him to him. He has been looking for him for a long time to see him. But the guy didn't come with bad news, but to give our boy a summons. Tomorrow he must report to the camp and join the security forces. Zhao is clearly shocked by such sudden news. He certainly dreamed of joining their ranks, but he had already promised to cook delicious lobsters for the little girl. The next day, Zhao greatly changed his appearance and put on his father's military uniform. The girl spent a long time praising his cool outfit of a real warrior. Suddenly, a girl asks our hero a question about what Uncle Lin was like, but this question puts our hero into a stupor, and his operating system needs a reboot. As soon as Zhao began to talk about how cool Uncle Lin was, and generally an incredible hero, suddenly a huge sack appears in front of them. And this turns out to be our fat man, who brought many different things to our hero, so that he would not die on his journey. He says that Uncle Lin will soon receive the title of General of Magic. This fat man begins to praise this uncle nonstop, and tells the story of how Uncle Lin once fought an entire army alone with only a sword. Zhao is already tired of listening to all these stories about the great hero, and he demands to know about the bag that he so solemnly handed over to him, and there turns out to be a large amount of fur. But this is not a simple mountain of fur, but a real warrior's cloak that will definitely warm our hero on the journey, so to speak. This is a small dowry for the young warrior. Zhao likes this gift much more than just a whole bag of wool, and with incredible pride he begins to try on a new outfit. Zhao thanks his friend for such a valuable gift, but unfortunately the time comes to say goodbye for a long time. This is especially difficult for close friends. As they leave, they remember the lobsters that Zhao cooked so successfully, and he promises them that as soon as he returns, he will definitely cook many more. The girl reproaches the fat man that even in such a situation he only thinks about food, but Zhao does not want his friends to argue at such a moment. He turns to the guys and asks them to quickly return back to the city, because it's too cold here for clothes like theirs. It's impossible to believe that two such different biomes are separated by just a couple of centimeters, but the girl is already starting to sneeze from the cold and they begin to leave. These two are already simply shivering from the cold, but the fat man is simply afraid to imagine how cold it is where Zhao is now. If not for this, he would have long ago become a magical general. But the fat man is warmed up by warm thoughts that when Zhao returns, he will definitely take them to different restaurants and buy them a lot of delicious drinks. But it seems the fat man was already too much caught up in fantasies about delicious food and completely lost sight of the girl. Zhao will kill him if he loses the girl. But fortunately, she just stole the gloves from this fat dude and was already heading towards the city. Of course, he ran after her so that Zhao wouldn't beat him up when he returned. Meanwhile, 2 whole years have passed since our heroes parted, and Zhao notices that this region seems to have not heard about the change in weather because it is constantly snowing here. We are shown a military camp where a huge number of soldiers stood, and it was at that moment that military exercises were held. The gentleman called our main character to his room and was incredibly glad that Zhao was full of strength and energy. It seems that he managed to gain many achievements over these 2 years. The gentleman hands him 2 letters and orders him to take them to the desired address and then return back to the base. Zhao simply bows to him and says that he will do everything. Finally, the gentleman tells him a short way to the city and warns that various creatures may meet on his way. Let him be careful. Zhao calmly leaves his room, and the master thinks that it is just an incredible feeling to be young and fight on the battlefield. But suddenly he makes an incredibly evil grin and says that Zhao will die young because he sent him on the most dangerous path of all. The climate in this region really is not going to change, and as soon as Zhao left the base, he was instantly attacked by a huge snowstorm. From such a huge amount of snow, Zhao is already beginning to doubt that he will be able to complete the task, even if Santa Claus has already turned off his magic. Suddenly in the distance, he notices a strange figure resembling the silhouette of a man and simply does not believe that an ordinary person can walk in such a wilderness. Approaching a little closer, Zhao is completely convinced of what he saw. It turns out to be a lady who somehow managed to survive here walking in her pajamas. Noticing our main character, she turns to him with tears in her eyes and begins to beg him for help. Zhao was simply speechless from what he saw. The girl felt quite normal in this weather, but he could not understand why she was crying. The lady begins to beg him to take her away from here. She is even ready to become his personal maid, but only to quickly get out of this terrible place. But when he saw the girl's strange behavior, he thought that this was the terrible creature about which his master had warned him, namely a woman. But it seems the lady is completely calm about such a strong blow from our hero and only calls Zhao incredibly cruel. Suddenly she flies up to him and wraps her arms around him like a kraken that wants to drag another pirate ship to the bottom of the ocean. Suddenly she begins to say that the main character hurt her very much, but at the same time her voice begins to hypnotize Zhao. His eyes begin to glow like the Rinnegan from Naruto, and he is surprised that he suddenly felt warm and soft as if he were lying under the covers on his comfortable bed. Magic effects begin to fly around, and Zhao is already completely under hypnosis and is simply unable to resist such a strong spell. The lady begins to whisper in his ear that she will definitely take care of the lost wanderer. Next to her, he should not worry about the terrible cold. The lady takes him by the hand and is going to take him to her refuge, where Zhao can calmly rest and sleep after a long journey. She tries to impress into his empty head that he wants to stay with her in this place once and for all. In his subconscious, Zhao says that he wants this lady to get the hell out of here, but in the real world, he obediently obeys her orders. Thinking that Zhao will no longer fight back, the lady releases her claws like those of Wolverine from the X-Men and is going to finish him off. But suddenly we are shown in the frame a very beautiful sword, which is decorated with various stones and is pointed towards this lady. The blade pierces this lady, and now finally, our main character can be free from the terrible female tyranny. Some dude stabs this lady right in the back like a real rat, which makes our main character surprised. This guy shouts for Zhao to quickly move aside because the lady has started casting a spell. The girl, in complete shock, does not understand where this ugly knight came from and how he crept up so unnoticed. She is extremely dissatisfied with the fact that he pokes his nose into her villainous plans, but when the knight tried to finish her off, she simply dodged. This madam turns out to be a real witch and creates a powerful explosion that throws the knight several meters away. This dude clearly didn't think that this lady would be so powerful, and now he doesn't have a special plan on how to defeat her. He starts running away from her at great speed like a flash. The dude is clearly not going to fight her and is just trying to save his life. But it's impossible to run away forever, and the boy finds himself trapped. Now his path is blocked by icy rocks. Of course, the lady catches up with him and starts laughing. Now he has nowhere to run and she can use her witch spell on him. She is very happy because no warriors have appeared in this place for a long time, and men's souls are much nicer than ordinary ones. But this statement doesn't seem to scare this dude at all. He smiles like Yujiro Hanma starts the countdown. This girl is incredibly happy and gets incredible pleasure from the fact that an incredible feast of souls will soon begin. But suddenly the dude finishes his countdown, and a strange light lights up under the girl's feet as if from heaven. It turns out that the boy deliberately led the lady into a trap, and now she is surrounded by a circle of fire from which she cannot get out. Now it's time for the boy to laugh a little at the girl, and he creates a powerful aura that covers his sword. He believes that those icy cliffs will be a perfect place for her grave, and launches an incredible fire attack at the lady. But even with this circle, he cannot defeat her, and she begins to laugh at the weakness of the current generation of knights. Suddenly, some male voice called this lady a witch, and she had to take a little break from the battle. It turns out that this is one of the knights who prepared many explosive seals from Naruto in advance and threw them at her. Of course, it becomes difficult for the girl to fight with so many enemies, and she gradually begins to lose ground. But this knight is not going to stop and uses a technique called Endless Nemo to definitely finish off this witch. The second guy is also not going to stand aside and does a technique called the opposite technique. The battlefield begins to glow with all the colors of the rainbow, and the lady drowns in an incredibly beautiful but scorching sea of fire. A huge column of fire engulfs this girl, and she is completely burned so that not even ashes remain from her. Finally, after a long battle, the guys can calmly rest and have a drink after a long battle, otherwise their throats are already dry from all this fire. Over the fire, the gentleman tells our chief about those strange creatures. They are called ice women, and they feed on the souls of young warriors. He mocks Zhao because these witches are capable of taking a soul with just one kiss, and the boy becomes depressed. But the boy thinks that his master deliberately deceived him and sent him along such a dangerous road. The guys are discussing the current situation and are already preparing a plan for revenge on this damn gentleman, because he definitely did it on purpose. The guy talks about two guys whom he recently beat up, and apparently now they are sharpening their teeth on him. He makes an incredibly serious face and is going to finish off everyone who stands in his way. The boy curses everything that happened to him and prays for it all to end. Let's take a little break from the revenge plan and move to a beautiful night town. Some lady comes to the local temple and is amazed that she has come such an incredible journey and finally arrived. Her face clearly expresses dissatisfaction, and she is clearly angry at all the troubles in her life. In the temple itself, the girl begins to be praised because she is the only sword master in the family and the only one who can stand up for Jin error. They discuss Zhao and are surprised that this guy is still alive, and also join the army where he now holds a high position. The lady is extremely unhappy that this pathetic rat is still alive. Let him not complain now that all her anger will fall on him. The old man ominously rubs his palms and asks the girl at what point she can kill this scoundrel. But Madame doesn't seem to be going to kill him and looks at this old man with displeasure. Apparently, she has her own plan. Meanwhile, Zhao calmly walks around the city, and everyone greets the returning hero, asking him to be sure to stop by the fish shop. The girl believes that there are many ways to kill a person, and it is not necessary to resort to brute force, but she will definitely finish him off. Zhao was calmly walking around the city when he suddenly saw that a girl was handing out tasty treats on a stick to the kids, and he clearly wanted to try it. The girl warmly greets our hero and asks if he remembers her. Of course he remembers, but does not understand why she was in the city. But in fact, the lady really missed her hometown and her heart was yearning for how sweet she still was. She notices that Zhao has grown up a lot and has become a real handsome man. In honor of such a meeting, she invites him to eat berries and sugar. The boy decides to give all the berries to the kids, and the girl is angry that the boy did not accept her charming gift. Zhao invites her to come in and have some tea, but she refuses. She'd rather play with the kids a little more. But the lady makes a very strange face as if she is a real villain from JoJo who has a plan to take over the world. She creates some strange seal from the Naruto anime and throws it into the apartment of our main character. Meanwhile, the boy managed to make friends with the cactus and thought that the girl was somehow strange because her surname was Zhao. This seal has already flown across the entire room and stuck to the floor. I wonder what it will do after it is activated. Zhao still walks around with his new friend the cactus and rushes to open the doors to uninvited guests, not allowing a moment to rest. Behind the door stood a crying boy, whose father was torn to pieces by ghouls, and for half a year, he walked to this temple begging for food. Our main character turns out to be incredibly kind and sheltered this young man at his home. Now he can eat all his food. The boy's stomach growls so loudly that an earthquake almost starts, and Zhao offers him to cook a lot of delicious food. Our hero's best friends come running to the incredible smell and are already anticipating the incredible taste of the spiced crayfish that Zhao prepares. Of course, Zhao condemns her fat man for not stopping at his best friend, but for food. But the girl doesn't even hide that she came for the lobsters. The fat man doesn't understand why he took in a child because life is hard for him, but Zhao quickly covers his mouth with food so as not to offend the boy. He just smiles at the little kid and asks him not to even think about the fact that it will be difficult for him to raise and provide for him. Somehow, having pulled the lobsters out of his mouth, the fat man says that he knows one interesting way to make money easily, and no, it's not 1x bet. The guys are very interested in this strange method, and realizing that now the guys have paid attention to him, he considers himself the king of the party. Time passes, night has already fallen, and the actions are transferred to another temple where important issues are discussed. The old man is worried that our main character is still alive, but the girl convinces him that the boy will not live to see the sun rise. But the lady warns him that this will be the last time she helps him with the murder of any person. He will deal with the rest without her. Meanwhile, Zhao sleeps peacefully in his home with his new family member, placing his faithful cactus friend on the windowsill. Suddenly, this strange seal on his bed starts to activate and glows in different colors of the rainbow. Out of nowhere, a huge magic blade appears in you, which, like a meteorite that destroyed the dinosaurs, flies to kill Zhao. But the boy also thought well about the safety of his home and prepared in advance a magical lion that would attack this blade. This battle was simply incredible, and the lion even manages to break a piece of this sword. But not everything is as sweet as it seems at first glance. The blade with one sharp blow destroys the statue that summoned this lion, and the battle ends in a draw. In the morning, everyone notices that the ancient lion's head is broken off, and they don't understand what kind of marauders could do something like that. Father Zhao also made this statue for protection from evil spirits. Apparently, he fulfilled his destiny and can now rest in peace. The lady also came to look at all this and was incredibly angry that Zhao turned out to be incredibly durable. This sword was one of her strongest attacks. But suddenly we see how the lady is trying to quickly leave the scene, but betrays herself with her strange behavior. That super cool librarian calls this lady over and decides it's time to give her a fair trial. He is clearly not happy that, due to personal hostility towards our hero, she put people's lives in danger and now she must repay for it. Although her cultivation abilities are quite strong, if she uses them for evil, then she is no better than a street dog and is not worthy of such power. Apparently, the girl is not going to tolerate all these insults in her direction and attacks this dude with a katana, but he is too tough to fight such a weak girl, and so he uses Itachi's move Uchiha from Naruto. Apparently, this dude's genjutsu turns out to be incredibly strong, and the girl takes a huge amount of damage. She feels offended that because of some Zhao, this gentleman cut off her path to immortality. But he does not understand what this madam is talking about. He says that the girl is just an ordinary spiritual practitioner and has no right to attribute herself to the Celestials. The dude orders her to immediately leave the city and not come into his sight again, otherwise there will not even be bones left of her. The guys are standing and discussing testing a new location in the game they are in. After all, the testers did their best. The fat man likes the fact that such a beautiful girl sits completely helpless and offers her his help. He clearly likes such a sight. But the lady is clearly not in the best mood and simply yells for this fat dude to get away from her. The fat man complains to everyone he can because his knightly pride has just been humiliated by some woman. Suddenly, the lady notices that Zhao has already packed his backpack and is about to leave somewhere with the boys. The girl asks him if he is an NPS in this game, but Zhao does not understand what she is talking about. Then she wants to find a teleport in this game. But instead of this, the madam suggests that it is better to go into the city and explore the local attractions. The little boy is surprised by the beauty of the local girls. Zhao agrees with him, but notices that they dress too brightly. Even a great dynasty does not dress like that. Our main character remembers the words about NPS and teleports, and realizes that he has heard these words before. Apparently, he once played Genshin Impact. He remembers the words of that fat man about making money. He said that first you will need to catch 15 kilograms of crayfish. It is best to do this with powerful blows. Jay remembers all the techniques he learned in the army, and decides to try out the new technique he learned. He accumulates a lot of chi energy in his fist, and then makes one sharp blow to the surface of the water. And surprisingly, this blow turned out to be so powerful that all the sea creatures that were in the river simply flew out of the water like popcorn. The wave that was created by this blow hit the small boy, and he was clearly angry because he was not going to take a shower today. One of the lobsters decided to take revenge for the extermination of his entire family, and bit the little boy. From such pain, he burst into tears.
Zhao looked at all his loot and was extremely surprised that the fat man's plan worked. Apparently, sometimes even good ideas come to his mind.
The boy with incredible joy caught crayfish from the river and was amazed at their number. Now we can begin the second stage of the plan. The actions are transferred to the real world where the situation with our main character was discussed. The testers should have already met with Zhao in the city. The girl is extremely concerned about the condition of her brother and wants to contact him, but the addresses of the players are kept strictly secret and cannot be disclosed. The dude asks her to wait a little and tries to calm her down by saying that they will definitely come up with a plan to contact her brother. The action moves to a restaurant where one of the great sword masters was extremely dissatisfied with the meat that was brought to him. Of course, the restaurant will correct everything and make a new dish. Other visitors begin to whisper among themselves, this sword master is a very frequent guest at this inn, and any dish that he approves becomes incredibly popular. Meanwhile, all the lobsters that our main character caught were already prepared according to a special recipe and were ready to be served. Zhao greets the gentleman who has just returned from the front line and really wants him to try such an incredible dish prepared in his honor. The old man is extremely surprised by such an incredible smell and still decides to try such an incredible dish. From the very first bite, he is delighted. The sword master was simply overjoyed because he had not eaten such delicious food for a long time. He would definitely praise this dish. The fat man has already gone to the restaurant owner to make him an offer that he definitely cannot refuse, and they both can earn a lot of money. The little guy is simply beside himself with joy because he really wants them to get rich from this idea, and Zhao promises that he will definitely agree on everything. But suddenly something appears before his eyes that brings him into incredible shock, as if he had seen a ghost. Two dudes appeared before his eyes, one of whom stood on his sword, and Zhao was amazed at his coolness. This guy jumps off the sword and starts heading towards our hero, clearly with not good intentions. Suddenly he sets his sword on fire, and the mustachioed dude says that this time no one will be able to support and protect our hero. Of course, Zhao stands up for his small family member and says that the boy is now under his protection. But the mustachioed dude is only angered by the words of this bastard, and he starts yelling that he will finish them both off with the help of his partner. The guy with the huge sword doesn't understand why the mustachioed guy can't handle such a small thing on his own, but he tells him about Zhao's strength and that he's not as simple as he seems. But this guy doesn't care at all about the rumors that are circulating about this guy. He is just a second-stage warrior, after which he creates a fiery barrage of attacks. Zhao immediately grabs the small guy to take him away from the attack and jumps back from such a large-scale attack from this dude. He gives the child a card and asks him to run to the camp as soon as possible to bring a stronger knight. He definitely won't be able to cope here alone. The boy is amazed at the incredible heroism of our main character, but there is no time for surprise because the enemy is not asleep. This dude again charges his fiery aura and launches it at our guys, saying that while the little one runs to the camp, he will simply kill them. But Zhao is also not a weakling and is not going to die so easily. He asks the boy to run away as soon as possible or they will be doomed. The boy turns around and starts running as fast as he can towards the camp so that he doesn't get caught by the fiery attacks of that dude. Zhao is also not going to just defend himself and inflicts a strong barrage of attacks straight at this dude. You need to buy as much time as possible for the guy. Meanwhile, that dude turns out to be not so cool and flies several meters away like popcorn in a microwave. Seems to have gone completely mad with rage and simply yells at our hero that he is an insignificant worm who has no right to evade his attacks. He makes a couple more spinning attacks and creates a fiery tornado that almost hits Zhao, but he manages to dodge. But this couldn't last forever and several attacks still hit the main character, and he is amazed at how quickly this dude delivers his attacks. At the end of the battle, Zhao is thrown into the river to feed the fish and the mustachioed dude begins to laugh evilly. But it seems that this is far from the end of the fight. The gloating of the mustachioed man still does not stop, and the guy decides that the couple will end with the one who crossed the path of this family and creates a powerful spell on his sword. Zhao has already been beaten enough and he is simply not able to fight, so he begins to go to the bottom. Apparently he is better off hanging out with the fish. But there is nothing like that. The villains hear the sounds of galloping horses and the boy yelling that they are rushing to help brother Zhao. Turning around, they saw a whole cavalry rushing towards them, and then the bad guys realized that the matter was rubbish and the couple would already get out of here. The dude who fought doesn't seem to like the prospect of fighting an entire army, and sitting on his sword as if on a king's plane, he wants to fly away as quickly as possible. The mustachioed man begs not to leave him and to take him on board with you, but the betrayal has already been committed, and in the place of the guy there is only a cloud of smoke left. Suddenly a horse pounces on him and frightens him very much. This man is absolutely nothing without his partners. They simply trample him face down into the dirt, and the guy on the horse watches as one of the villains flies away, as if he bought tickets to aviasales. But of course he won't go unpunished either, and some guy flies at him like a meteorite with a fiery kick attack. Although he tried to somehow justify his actions, his fate was already sealed, and having received a powerful kick in the face, he was simply driven into the ground like a dull nail. In a state of complete despair, he tries to justify his actions and says that our main character is much lower in rank than him, and this was fair. But apparently such excuses do not suit this guy. Even if Zhao is only a second-stage warrior, this does not mean that he can be killed, and hits this guy right in the face. The dude says that if this evil guy is from a high-ranking family, then he will make a small concession as a sign of respect for this family, and this calms him down a little. The condition was that if the villain repelled this attack, he would definitely save his miserable life, otherwise he would not escape the sentence. And then they will decide to check what will be stronger, the life of this bad guy or the fist of the venerable knight. Here it seems the answer is completely obvious. After delivering just one blow, this guy falls dead with a hole in his chest like Rin from the Naruto anime, so the guy got what he deserved. Having defeated this bastard, the dude simply flies back to his army to deal with the dude with the mustache. He should also get what he deserves. Meanwhile, Zhao is still hanging out with the fish at the bottom of the river. It seems he liked it there and has no plans to swim out from there. All his friends had gathered and had already begun to mourn their comrade. The fat man tried not to show emotions because he needed to console the children. Although Zhao is already a fairly experienced warrior, he received a mortal wound from a warrior of the 6th level of cultivation. Let them be on duty until they find him alive or dead. Some time passes and the action moves downstream of the river, where they are currently trying to save our main character. Some dude in a cool robe asks the lady to stop talking nonsense and help him pull a man out of the river as soon as possible. Fortunately, our boy still manages to be pulled out of the water with the help of this girl's magic. He asks her to be as careful as possible with his body. Suddenly, the main character's sword begins to glow like Link's from the Legend of Zelda series of games and apparently tries to give some kind of sign. The guy begins to worry that the girl has reincarnated so suddenly because it might attract people's attention, but she thinks that this should not bother him. This guy doesn't understand why she allowed the main character to be wounded, but she reminds him that a few blows definitely won't hurt him. The girl uses healing magic on Zhao. According to Saidi, he should not die from such a wound, but everyone is still worried about him. Zhao briefly regains consciousness and starts coughing up cherry juice. It seems things are much worse than we expected. Madame tells him not to worry because she is his life keeper and is here to prevent the things that fate has in store for him. But the guy just smiles and says that he and Zhao are real friends. He just can't stand still and watch while our main character suffers. The girl gives Zhao to this guy and asks him to look after him for a while until she comes up with a plan to save him. Suddenly she takes off and goes into the heavens, and in parting the guy asks her not to make a lot of noise. In response, she asks him to take care of himself, and she will sort it out somehow. The action moves to a meeting where Big Shot sat and discussed the situation that happened to the main character. This is simply an unforgivable violation, and the bad guy needs to be punished. For some reason, they believe that if that fire magician died, then our main character should also die, which is very strange. Suddenly, the lady bursts into this meeting like Sasuke who came to the meeting of the 5 Kage. She is clearly unhappy with what these guys are going to do. Our guardian angel believes that these guys overestimate their capabilities, and if they even lay a finger on our guy, they will have a hard time. The action moves to the hospital where Zhao wakes up clearly in poor shape. His body hurts so much that he can't even move. The fat man calls him a real lucky guy because he survived after being mortally wounded, and the kids are incredibly happy that their brother woke up after a long sleep. He asks the girl not to cry just like that, because there are only a couple of scratches on him, and they are not capable of causing much harm to a real Sigma like him. A girl with blue hair offers him a cup of tea after a difficult battle, and he thanks her for bringing him to this room. Madame tells him that all the people in the villages who know how to swim went to his belts, and the guy promises to definitely repay them for their kindness. She tells him about the ceremony for young men that is about to take place, and that he must definitely get better before that moment. She will accompany him as a family member. The boy finds the girl's behavior very strange and even blushes. He does not understand why she began to show attention to him so suddenly. Suddenly, everyone who was in the ward begins to fight for the honor of accompanying Zhao to the ceremony for the young men, because they are his family. This makes our hero laugh very much. The day of the ceremony arrived and Zhao had already fully recovered. Every year this event takes place under this white tree. Every year all those who have reached the age of 15 pray, and the tree gives them a fruit that will decide their path as cultivators or a knightly order. Fruits are also divided according to their properties and colors, which determines how strong the ability and luck a novice warrior or magician will receive. The little boy is very excited because he can't wait to find out what kind of fruit his older brother will get. The fat man says that he went last and maybe he will get something rare. Finally, he was invited to go out to the white tree and pray. The guys were very worried about his fate because a lot depended on it. The little dude strongly supports our hero, and Zhao bows to the tree 3 times and completes the ritual of prayer. But for some reason, the fruit does not fall, and the crowd begins to worry that even the worst fruit is not going to fall from the tree. The guy's father was once a great warrior after fighting an army of thousands alone. Then why isn't the tree going to give him the fruit? But Zhao understands perfectly well that he is in someone else's body and is doomed to forever be completely alone, pretending not to be who he really is. But suddenly the sword that we found in the cave is activated and cuts off one of the red fruits of the tree, which falls to our boy. The fat man is simply shocked that Zhao is so incredibly lucky. Red fruits fall out quite rarely and have incredible power. One of the guys became very interested in this strange magical sword. There is no order or law in front of it, and it has strange magical powers. And our main character is absolutely fine. He is extremely pleased with the fact that he received the fruit, and all his depression disappeared as if by hand. The dude says that this year's ceremony is over, and warns that the fruits cannot be eaten for 3 days, otherwise the magical power will explode, and everyone will die. And the most important thing is that the fruits are a gift from the sacred tree. No one has the right to take the fruits from other participants. This is extremely punishable. If suddenly someone dares to do this, the army will definitely finish off this person. And under such an epic speech, it begins to rain, and the actions are transferred to the main character's house. He just sat quietly and waited for the moment when he could eat the treasured fruit, but suddenly strange sounds were heard behind him. In bewilderment, he turned sharply to find out who it was. It seems that with the appearance of the fetus, he became much more tense. But it turns out to be a rather friendly guy who told our hero about how he spent the whole night getting here to buy this fruit from him. Of course, he understands the price of such a rare item, and therefore tries to bribe the guy with hundreds of gold coins. Zhao, of course, wants to refuse such an offer because this item was forbidden to give away, but the guy says that this 100 coins can change the boy's poor life. Electric shock passes through the main character's body, which pierces his bones to the point of trembling and pain. An outdated stun gun, in short. From such pain, the guy simply falls to the floor, exhausted. Not understanding what the hell this creature is doing, he knows perfectly well what theft of the sacred fruit will be like. The guy just laughs loudly and says that if the vessel of heavenly origin is cut, then the path of the cultivator for the guy is closed once and for all. Dark Souls is shot at this dude, from which he somehow manages to escape, but he still doesn't understand what the hell is happening here. Some guy is standing on the threshold of a house in a huge hat and says that it's starting to rain outside. He asks the owner of this house to allow him to wait here. The bad guy takes a fighting stance and creates a powerful spell. The dude in the hat better get out of here and not interfere in the affairs of this family. Zhao says that unfortunately he is not receiving guests today, but the guy in the hat says that he won't bother him too much, he just needs a corner where he can sleep. Of course, the guy will pay him for the night since he just had some trash in his house that it's time to throw out the door. The guy can no longer tolerate all this bullying and angrily attacks a guy who looks like Scaramuccia from the game Genshin Impact. But apparently he turns out to be too much of a cultivator and shoots another soul arrow that sends the guy on a long flight. Humiliated and embittered, he asks to tell him his name because the whole family will definitely find him and deal with this pathetic worm. But the guy is already tired of listening to all this nonsense about some kind of family. It's clear that he is not a fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He simply grabs him by the hand and throws him out the door like garbage in a trash can, saying goodbye that he will definitely find his whole family in order to settle scores. The guy asks our main character about his cut soul vessel. Does he know how to restore his cultivator abilities? But Zhao just smiles happily and says that he really hopes that he can help him solve this problem. The dude hands him a seal that needs to be attached to his stomach, after which he needs to wait 3 days and eat the fruit, then the connection with spiritual energy will be restored. But the guy in the hat asks our hero not to underestimate the power of the sacred fruit. It is not only capable of restoring his spirit, but also giving him powerful strength. Zhao thanks this guy and wants to repay him for his help, but he says that he came to this city only because of him and now he can call him third brother. Zhao doesn't understand what this guy means when he talks about his brother. In addition, he came out of nowhere and just helped him, which was very strange. The dude says that they can call themselves brothers because they control swords and points to the very weapon that our hero found. The guy in the hat also hands the guy a list of techniques that Zhao can learn if he starts training with his weapon. The guy wrote this list on his own, and it would be nice for our hero to also learn this. Calligraphy perfectly develops spiritual energy. The list of techniques is different. Some techniques are capable of turning objects into peaches, while others drive out evil spirits. When Zhao improves, he will also be able to write his own techniques. The rain has just stopped, and the guy has time to leave because he needs to meet with one of his old friends. Zhao wants to see him off. But the guy refuses such a request because there is no need for it. He flies out of the yard like a rocket and instantly disappears from sight. 3 days have passed and the guys were sitting at the table. The fat man tells our hero that now he can eat this fruit without fear that it will explode and kill him. The little girl likes that this fruit looks very beautiful, but Zhao still takes the first bite himself, and it turns out to be very sweet. The boy was a little shocked that it tasted like an ordinary apple, but it was so perfect that there was not a single seed in it. The fruit should have very powerful properties, but when Zhao ate it, he suddenly wanted to sleep and everything went dark before his eyes. He fell asleep right at the table, and everyone began to panic and think that sleeping pills had been mixed into the fruit. Apparently, Zhao did not know that sleeping at the table was not decent. Meanwhile, the boy fell into his subconscious and tried to find a way out of this place, similar to where Naruto first met Kurama. In his subconscious, he saw his QI energy, and was glad that the guy in the hat gave him really good advice. This vessel was completely healed. Suddenly, the pinch began to shake, and the boy saw huge geysers of water begin to erupt from huge holes in the floor. These things began to attack Zhao with their magical energy, and they were so powerful that they almost knocked him down. Meanwhile, the librarian and the guy in the hat were sitting and discussing the successes of our main character. A great future awaits him because he has already discovered 3 lakes of power. The librarian thinks that it is better to keep this a secret for some time, because if rumors about this spread, then problems for our hero will clearly not be avoided. He believes that for now it would be better to hide the aura of the 2 lakes for a while, so Zhao will be in less danger, and the enemies will not come to finish him off. But the boy in the hat had long ago realized that there were magicians of the 10th stage and above. They had already sensed the aura of the 3 lakes, and news of this would quickly spread. Then the librarian takes it into his own hands. Zhao will be completely safe. These guys clearly don't want to die at his hands. Then it's better to keep everything secret. Meanwhile, Lin Zhao and the little boy were training hard, and Zhao wanted to test his newfound strength. The guys in the background were discussing the fact that our main character had been beaten up by an entire clan, so much so that each of them lost 1 level of cultivation. When that clan came to take the fruit from this guy, they were not only beaten, but also brought upon themselves the wrath of the Celestial. The old man is angry because recently the guardian angel of our main character invaded the estate and threatened them with death if they even laid a finger on Zhao. This lady was capable of destroying his entire village with 1 blow, so he had to retreat, and with dissatisfied sighs they leave this place. That lady with blue hair came to visit our main character, and he begins to brag to her that he has already become a 5th level warrior. And the little boy will soon turn 7 years old, and he will also be able to join the ranks of the 1st level warriors. Everyone was incredibly happy about this. The girl congratulates both guys, but some strange dude is standing behind her, and Zhao wants to know why he is looking at him so strangely. This gentleman is a deity. It is thanks to him that magical energy flows in the rivers and mountains of this village. He lives in the northernmost mountain of this state. The boy was already choking on what he heard because he had never met the local deity, but the girl corrected him and said that he was the ruler of the mountains, much higher in rank. Zhao takes several fish from his belt and tells his sister to make soup from it. This fish has an excellent taste. The boy thinks that it will be unpleasant for the girl to carry the fish, and therefore asks the Lord of the Mountains to carry it, which greatly confuses this guy. The deity is simply in shock, because for the first time someone turned to him with such a strange request as to carry a fish. It was unusual for him, but nothing could be done. The little guy makes fun of our hero and says that he likes this girl with blue hair because he is extremely kind to her. After these words, Zhao wants to beat him. But the lady is not at all bothered by this situation, and she says that when Zhao becomes a warrior of the 10th stage, she will definitely go on a date with him. Of course, the guy agrees. Having received a surge of strength and motivation, the guy goes to train in order to go on a date with a beautiful lady as soon as possible. After all, the little guy's joke turned out to be no joke. But it seems that the Lord of the Mountains is not very happy with this state of affairs. He began to consider Zhao his rival in the battle for the heart of a beautiful lady, and he will definitely not yield to him. Our main character decides to come to a place where spiritual energy is at its highest, and to train here. Zhao is clearly no longer the little kid who once came into this world. Now he has become much stronger and he inhales a lot of air, like in the anime A Blade Cutting Through Demons. But it turns out that he didn't come here to train, but to shout at the top of his voice that he will become a warrior of the 10th stage and go on a date with a beautiful lady. The action moves to the house of our protagonist where, on the advice of his brother, he decided to practice drawing talismans. Suddenly the idea comes to his mind that if he improves the quality of these talismans, he will be able to sell them for a more expensive amount and become a real millionaire Mr. Beast. Zhao decides to first try out his creation and activates one of the talismans with his Kui energy. It begins to light up. This didn't have much of an effect and the talisman simply burned out, spreading the guy's energy throughout the house, but why didn't it work? He thinks that it's the quality of the tools he works with and decides that he will go to town and buy himself good paper and brushes with the money he earns. Zhao comes to one of his familiar sellers, and he asks him not to pay attention to the fact that the store is a little shabby. The quality of their goods is excellent. Zhao is a little surprised that he works part-time here, but nowadays making money is not so easy. It's better to let him show him the entire list of goods that they have. The old man turns out to be extremely hospitable. The only thing Zhao needs is good paper, and this shop has exactly what he needs. He shows him all kinds of paper. Of course, the best of them is golden paper, which can hold almost any spell. But our main character is a little embarrassed by the prices he must pay, and he already imagines how many crayfish he will have to sell to pay for it all. The old man says that if the price is not affordable for him, then he can look at something in the trash, that is, in the special offers department. The paper there is worse, but if you try, everything will work out. Zhao immediately begins to examine everything in this trash can in the hope of finding something suitable. This is the only thing he can afford in this store. Having collected a pile of garbage for himself, he remembers that he will need a good brush, but it seems that he is not able to afford this either. He saw a brush that looked completely simple, but had an aura of murder emanating from it, the kind they use to paint military talismans. Just perfect. Zhao wants the old man to sell him the brush with which he writes in his journal, but it seems he doesn't want to part with it. This brush has been with him for half his life. The old man is amazed that the guy has a very keen eye. Once upon a time, he bought this brush from a military family. It is made of white horsehair and is very valuable to him. Suddenly, the librarian tells the old man that if he gives up his brush, his grandson will definitely enter the academy. He just needs to sell the brush to the boy, and that's it. Of course, the arrival of his grandson is much more important for him than the brush, but he still cannot part with it so easily, but still sells it to the guy for 100 simple coins. Apparently, she was destined for our hero by fate. The old man asks to be as careful as possible with her and never return to this store again. Suddenly, a guy named Li Tong appears in front of our hero. He is the current minister and ruler of the dynasty. He looks at our hero and is surprised that such a young warrior has already reached the 5th stage and awakened one lake of power. Extremely curious. This dude asks our hero to introduce himself, and he is completely at a loss. He simply doesn't know what to do. He has to say that his name is Lin Zhao. The old man tells him to bow before him, but our boy is not satisfied with his order. He can only bow to the heavens but will never bow to man. This dude thought that Zhao was too impudent for his age and was looking for problems for himself since he showed such disrespect, and the warrior was already flying at him to cut off his head. Of course, Zhao is not going to get into a fight and start shouting to the whole street that an official is killing an innocent person in broad daylight. Where are the fair laws? But the old man apparently doesn't give a damn about all the laws and is already tired of our main character. He orders his soldiers to shoot him before rumors spread throughout the city. Our boy is also far from stupid to expose himself to a hail of arrows and takes a pre-prepared seal from his pocket. A powerful aura appears around Zhao that blocks all the opponent's arrows, and he tells the old man to get his attacks back. And indeed, all the arrows flew back to this idiot's army. One of the warriors ordered to defend the master with all his might and finally finish off this loser Zhao. And he seems to have a lot of fun from this situation. He accelerates like Sonic the Hedgehog and quickly leaves the scene, leaving the warriors in complete confusion. But one of them is not going to let this guy go without punishment so easily, and throws a spell at him called a fire spear. And then Zhao realizes that the situation smells like a fry, and he can't leave so easily. After all, he needs to come up with a plan on how to survive. Some strange figure appears and simply feeds this arrow so that it flies into the ground and saves our hero from inevitable death. The spear sticks into the ground, and the very second the warrior saw the girl, he instantly bows his head in front of her and falls to his knees. A beautiful girl with red eyes appears in front of our hero and asks him not to worry about these pathetic warriors. The girl simply strokes his head and promises to teach him a lesson to these scoundrels who dared to attack our hero. Zhao greets this girl with a smile and asks her not to worry because he is completely fine. He thanks her for saving her. The old man watched this strange situation and did not understand what this crazy woman forgot in this place in broad daylight. Still, he decides that he still has a lot of important things to do, and there is no need to complicate this situation. He simply takes his horse away and leaves. One of the warriors is surprised that the gentleman so easily lets go of the scoundrel who humiliated him and did not bow. One cannot simply forgive. But the old man angrily scratches his beard and says that the war will soon begin, and there will be many opportunities to deal with this loser. The girl tells him that if he is going to join the army, he should be wary of this old man because he often resorts to cruel methods to annoy someone. The guy didn't understand where she learned that Zhao was going to join the army, but she told him that the old man was gathering all the guys over 15 years old to strengthen the troops. The girl tells him about one of the strongest detachments of the cinnabar bird. They are engaged in protecting the border, and the boy thinks that the lady is a member of this detachment. The dude also thinks about the approaching war, and that if Zhao suddenly finds himself in a trap, he will have to take out his sacred weapon and then everything will be over. But the girl's only concern is that Zhao could become a big problem, and whether he will be able to be there when this happens. But the guy just drinks tea contentedly, and says that it would be better to watch our main character, then they will be able to make the right decision on what to do with him. He just smiles evilly and says that they shouldn't get their hands dirty, and will hire a special person who will deal with him for them. The action moves to our hero's house, and night has already fallen. Zhao is trying hard to improve his skills in writing various seals, and the little dude is looking at them and trying to understand at least a little what is happening. The little one tells his brother to draw as many of these things as possible in order to save his life at the right moment. But Zhao says that this quantity is quite enough. He smiles brightly and says that his brother should not worry about him. He will definitely return from this war in one piece and will spend a lot of time with his brother. And now the action moves to the training camp, where a huge number of soldiers lined up to listen to the chief's speech. Joe stands among this crowd and can't wait for his comrade to come out and give a speech. It's good that he is on good terms with him and can have a meal with him. And finally, the dude appears on the stage, and an order comes for all the soldiers to greet him and listen carefully to his words. The wrong person appears on the stage that our main character expected to see, and he begins to talk about the war and that we need to concentrate all our strength on it. Suddenly, Zhao remembers that half of the troops were killed in the war, and several generals too. The thought begins to enter his head that his friend was also killed in this war. For the death of their brothers and in order to protect their country, they must fight and win, after which the entire army raises its fists and, with shouts, prepares for war. Zhao is in the squad that must track enemies, and if detected, they must immediately give a signal using spells. Zhao understands all orders. But suddenly Zhao is appointed leader of this team. Pride overwhelms him, and he says that he will not let his commander down and will cope with everything. He immediately begins to give orders and assigns each person to watch a separate piece of territory. The enemy must not break through unnoticed. Zhao himself remains to observe the work of his squad. He feels responsible for the fact that now he is the captain here and must give his best. But suddenly a strange sound is heard, and some purple needles begin to fly out from behind the bushes and fly towards our hero. Fortunately, he manages to dodge them, but what the hell is going on here? Why the attack was carried out so suddenly and how the enemy broke into their territory? It turns out to be some fat dude who was dressed in their military uniform, but why the hell did he betray them and attack our main character? There is no time to think, so Zhao decides to immediately launch an attack with a powerful kick straight to the body, and along the way he tries to ask about this guy's betrayal. The dude flies into the nearest tree. He says that he was specially sent to send Zhao to the next world, and he will definitely carry out the order. Our hero still doesn't understand why they need his death, but now he's not going to just forgive it, and he's going to demonstrate his new abilities. The guy uses his purple needles again, but our main character calmly dodges them and prepares to strike back. He applies one of the seals that he prepared in advance, and after its activation, energy of incredible power begins to burst out. Zhao just screams and, covering himself in flames like the armor of Susanoo from the Naruto anime, flies at this dude at incredible speed. The guy starts coughing up cherry juice, but it doesn't seem like he's going to die just yet. Apparently, fulfilling the order awakens in him the strength to fight and willpower. He attacks our hero again. He is already tired of fighting with his former ally, and he is trying to understand why he is fighting with him. Zhao continues to use various seals and fights only with their help, but it seems that he is starting to lose ground and is losing. As the last rat dude pounces on him from behind and pierces him with a sword, our main character simply could not fight two enemies at once. This bastard smiles like the last rat. It turns out they were specially guarding him in advance and waiting for the moment when he would be left alone. But he too is not going to just die here, and therefore uses the enhancement seal and prescribes a delicious blow straight to the jaw of this little rat. From such a blow, the guy simply flies to the side and crashes into the bamboo trees in which these rats were hiding. Zhao quickly pulls out the dagger that was stuck into him and tries to heal the wound as quickly as possible because one enemy is still standing. The fat man begins to shake with fear because he understands that he cannot win alone and threatens that his master will never forgive him for killing his student. But he absolutely doesn't care about this dude's words, and he simply says that, let his master come and repeat these words to his face. After this, Zhao falls to the ground exhausted. Such a battle was far from easy for him, and now he is covered in scratches and abrasions. The guys who have been watching from the side all this time are only glad that he is exhausted, and now their goal can be achieved without any effort at all. The girl is trying to stop the madman who is coming to finish off Lin Zhao, but apparently there is no end to his madness. The guy wants to take away his sword so that the girl can become stronger, but she tells him not to do this because they are already strong enough. But suddenly 2 hands appear from the sword and say that before they finish off Zhao, they must first deal with her. This hand just grabs this guy so much that he is scared to death as if he saw a ghost. Now he is not so brave when his opponent is conscious. This hand simply throws these 2 up and creates a portal in the air that begins to suck them in. They simply cannot move and do not know what the hell is happening here. Zhao somehow wakes up and thanks his guardian angel for another rescue. If it weren't for her, he would simply die at the hands of these creatures. Madame says that he should not thank her because she is only worried about the divine sword, and his life was saved only because of it. But suddenly the boy gets a good dose of despair, because he has just realized that he is still as weak as he was. The girl is simply unable to contain her laughter, and says that of course the boy remains the same weakling. But he begins to make excuses to her. The next day, Zhao notices a dude talking to some strange bamboo demons, and discussing some kind of plan with them. Zhao has heard very well that they are very strong and extremely bloodthirsty by nature. With his powers, he cannot stop them alone. Then Zhao says that he will give it his all, then jumps off the tree and is going to attack these creatures. The boy uses all his accumulated strength to finish off these green goblins with one blow, Raikage technique from the Naruto anime on him, and grabs him by the neck while asking him for information. One by one, the guy scatters the goblins without even giving them the opportunity to understand who attacked them, just like a real assassin. But suddenly someone off-screen shouts at our main character and threatens to kill him, after which he creates a piece of sharpened bamboo from his hand. He throws this bamboo right at Zhao and it pierces the boy's left shoulder. Why does he always take unexpected blows on himself? During this time, the boy had already become a real warrior, and so he clenched his teeth so as not to scream in pain. This bamboo almost pierced his heart. Suddenly, some dude who looks like a man and not a goblin flies at our hero with a sword and says that people are his favorite food, some strange guy. Zhao will not allow himself to be offended so easily, and uses a defensive technique and then summons a turtle to cover his rear. In the end, the blow falls on the turtle. Of course I feel sorry for it, but our main character is already behind this guy, and he doesn't understand how Zhao swapped places with this beast. Our main character just yells at this dude. He will never be able to defeat him, after which Zhao delivers a powerful Saitama punch right to the guy's head. He clearly did not expect such a sudden blow, and received a severe concussion. So much so that his tongue stuck out. Zhao understands that defensive technique spent too much QI energy, and now he is completely exhausted. It's good that he managed to finish off the bad guy. Our main character leaves the battlefield for the camp to put a bandage on his wound as soon as possible, but he doesn't even notice how a strange light begins to emanate from the guy's body. Suddenly, a huge amount of bamboo begins to grow around Zhao, and he finds himself completely confused. A strange voice tells him that he cannot leave so easily. Suddenly on the battlefield, Zhao feels the familiar ki energy, and this force begins to cut all the bamboo and frees our hero from the trap. The dude is clearly angry that the main character is free again. How dare he get out of his incredible trap? The owner of the power that broke the trap turns out to be that girl with blue hair. Zhao is clearly glad that help has finally come to him. The guy who fights with bamboo still hopes to win, but our guys are clearly capable of teaching him a lesson in manners. The dude thinks this is the best time to have some great sword dueling training. He wants to learn something new. The girl tells him that in battle, the main thing is not always to swing the sword. You always need to analyze the situation and look for the opponent's weak points. Let Zhao try this on him. The place where the guy hit this guy will be his weak point, and these damn goblins are very afraid of fire, so you can burn him like a witch. Our guys get into an epic stance and are determined to teach this bastard a lesson and learn something new in one go. He takes the lady by the hand and gives her several seals he has made. She agrees to follow his plan and completely trusts her life to him. But this scoundrel still can't calm down and says that no matter how hard this couple tries, the only thing they will meet is death. He decides that the first person he will make a kebab will be our main character, and after which he creates another spear from bamboo and attacks Zhao. In order to at least somehow restrain this guy, he sacrifices his hand and the spear pierces it. He asks the lady to hurry up a little with the execution of the plan, and she is already in the right position and is ready to attack by charging her sword with magical ki energy. As a result, the girl pierces the villain's head right through and turns him into a kebab on a skewer. Now he is not as confident as before. She carries out a full attack and cuts off this guy's head. Suddenly he begins to glow and emit a huge amount of energy, as if preparing to explode. Zhao quickly jumps towards the girl to protect her from the explosion. Still, the explosion does not affect them, but Zhao is still worried about his lady love. It seems that right now, there will be that very moment of embarrassment for our hero. Although Zhao didn't do it on purpose, he still asked for forgiveness. The girl says that it wasn't his fault because he wanted to do what was best. The boy is already completely exhausted, and the lady helps him not to fall on the floor. They praise each other's fighting skills and say that they both did a good job. Zhao asks her to train him to become a sword master, but the girl cannot do this. Our hero's level is still too low for such training. But the lady tries to cheer up our hero and says that she will find a person who will teach him all the basics, and then there will be real training. The girl asks to call her elder sister, but Zhao does not understand such a strange request and asks her again why he should call her that.